Verdicts here at Channels, and continuing our focus, our continuing coverage of all things 2019 general elections. Well, 2 results have been announced. Well, we've since been joined by GT Ogunye, Channels TV's election consultant. Thank you for coming on this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
This afternoon, 2 results already, 2 states, so at least a lot of people have something to look into and see how that is playing itself out. But what do you think so far of these results just declared?
Well, 2 things immediately. The first is about how these results are coming in trickles. Things can be better done and organized. And I think that although results are coming, everywhere is peaceful and quiet, and we hope that this will be sustained on the long term, this kind of national suspense can generate or unfold a phase of post-election uncertainty, which partisans and even unscrupulous elements, and I'm not using the language of the military, who used to demonize civil society and call people unscrupulous elements. Indeed, unscrupulous elements can take advantage of that kind of situation. There ought to be some kind of immediacy to the release of results. But you can see how laborious, how cumbersome, how lethargic the whole process is. Spreadsheets from the ward, from to the local government, to the state, you know, the cost of collation, you see how elaborate the process is. And these persons, these officials, will then have to travel to Abuja, factor into it the unpredictability of flight operations. Even in some places, airports will not be available, meaning that they will have to travel to Abuja by road. So I understand that that will have been a factor in this kind of results coming the way they are coming, meaning that we may not be done with these results until tomorrow. Nigerians should expect that. But I think that moving forward, if not for this season now, but for the next election cycle, I think that we should do things in a more smarter, in a more smart fashion, and that will help a lot. Not only in the country, but for the international community that is concerned about what is going on in Nigeria, that is focused on Nigeria. They want to know the direction in which the country is going. That's my first impression. The second is that for the results that have come out, somehow the 2 leading political parties have shown that they are the actual contenders in this election, and that the parties on the fringes, the young parties, the new revolutionaries in town, do not have what it takes in our political circumstances to actually mount a serious challenge. And that's a challenge in a democracy that is a multi-party democracy. Because after this election, we'll have to deal with how unwieldy these political parties are. Because indeed, that unwieldiness affects the rhythm of this result. Because faithfully, those returning officers will have to be reading those who score 0, those who score 7, those who scored.
So this will take us a longer time.
It will take a longer time
than previously.
Yes, so factor that into it. So it's appearing that we're dealing with these two political parties. The question remains, however, whether this is desirable. Before coming to the studio, I listened attentively to Prof, who was, hoping that over time, ideology may then return to the center stage. I do not have that optimism. Why? Because the two leading parties, by the philosophy they've espoused, by their principles, if we can call these principles, by their actions, by their lifestyle, which is very important. Because you'll be wondering, how can a political party have a lifestyle? Political parties do have lifestyle. By their lifestyle, the kind of life their leaders live.
Any distinctive difference?
There's none. That's where I'm going. And so we may not be seeing that in a long time, if we think that these are the two political parties we should rest with. The kind of ideological differences that Nigerians need to see to be able to make a clear choice, an informed choice in an election. They will not say, believe you me, in this election, a lot of persons educated who stayed out this election, who are apathetic, who didn't bother to go and vote because the percentages are going to roll in now. Many of them privately confided, look, what's the difference? These young ones are not going to win anyway. The two leading ones, we can't see inspirational leadership here. We can't see the kind of leadership we want to see.
But
and so they stayed out this election. So the point I'm making, for your question, sir, therefore, is that after this election, it will be good, not only for themselves, but for the Nigerian people. For these young, small parties to think of coming together. Virtually all the people in these parties are people that we know from our civil society background, anti-military campaign. We know ourselves. So this atomization, this chest beating, this whole idea of think I'm a maverick, I'm going to do something, and all that. This is not the first time mavericks will contest election in Nigeria. And we cannot even call them mavericks. None of these new ones, and I stand to be corrected, was as popular, was as respected, was as formidable as Chief Gani Fawehinmi when he contested in 2003. And yeah, he didn't win. Fela Anikulapo Kuti had a political party. He was a maverick in this country. He had a movement of the people, MOP, and he had a YAP, Young African Pioneers. And he was going to universities in this country to be delivering lectures, right? And so they had a manifesto and all that.
So that looks like a semblance of an ideology in terms of what people wanted. So if at that time, late Chief Gani didn't win, and then what does it tell you in terms of we actually know what we want and we go for what we want? Because if the typology of what may seem to be ideal presented itself and they win.
Yeah, I won't say that, but the point I'm making is that that should serve as a lesson in sobriety. So that after this election, people can come together and say, we do not even have enough people to occupy the bureaucracy of Nigeria, the political offices, and there are so many. So why do we need to have these small mushroom parties? Let's come together. You can have trends in that party. The Democratic Party in the United States, there are trends or tendencies. There is the left of the party, there is the center of the party, there is the right. In Labour, you have the same thing. Conservative, you have the same thing. So we can be in one group and then pose a challenge, because you see these parties, these big parties, you may think that there is a division between them, but there's a large consensus. The big men of power, retired military people, business interest people, all of them are in these political parties. And if you know what they do in terms of building war chest to contest election, you'll be shocked. If you know what they do sometimes when they are losing to try to compromise the umpire, offering out of this world amount. You'll be shocked. And then you'll be wondering, how much is a mandate worth anyway? So if you want to beat such people, and you don't have what they have to compromise institutions, to corrupt the electorate and all that, and you can't do what they want to do because your morality does not say you should do that, you'll have to band together. And so when you do that, moving forward, we can then have this clear-cut ideological divide. And then people can then make a choice. But now, I don't see much so. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that, my submission is that we cannot hope that by default, by and by, these two parties will pose an ideological difference to each other, and then Nigeria can make a choice between the two of them.
How do we journey to the point of creating ideologies? Because what has played out a lot more over the years is interests as opposed to ideologies. In the Third Republic, there was a semblance of ideological differences, but in this Fourth Republic, even in the Second Republic, it looked a lot more like interests. Is there any way that these young, politicians can actually begin to formulate ideological pathways that they can create a following?
Well, you have to look at what has happened in the general world, the world at large. There's a famous political sociologist, Daniel Bell, who authored the work, The End of Ideology, that the world has moved away from ideology. We're now in a world of, shall I say, liberalism. So those who are attacking Donald Trump, they say he's doing havoc to liberalism. Okay? So because some will say that socialism is dead, and now it's survivalism. Everybody wants to survive. It's not ideology. They will say, "Na ideology I go job." So all we can do, and we are all Nigerians. Let's look at where those who want our votes, where they are coming from. Existential issues, because we are still at the level of food, work, health, clothing, shelter. Those are basic needs, what the ILO calls the basic needs. Majority of our people lack these needs. And that's why people say going technology, as some of us are preaching, will actually exclude majority of our population. I said almost everybody has a cell phone. They said, am I too sure? There are some people who don't have cell phones, who don't know about the internet. How would they plug in to what somebody called digital elections? And that's why I said we should do education, voter education. If they don't have, you teach them using cell phones. But to answer your question, how do people go to ideological policy? You emphasize the problematic of Nigeria. Nigeria, as we see it, we lack infrastructure. It's basic that you don't have the infrastructure in place. Roads, water, power, education, health. Those are basic needs that should not discriminate on the basis of where you come from. Nobody chooses his place of birth or his parents. So there are certain needs that society must meet. Okay? So the young people who want to be to reckoning in Nigeria must emphasize these needs. In the manifesto, they should dream dreams of Nigeria. I mean, when we were younger, we thought independence was going to bring us like an El Dorado. I was 12 years old when Nigeria became independent. I was going to Form 1. And all we had in my school was a big feast. A cow was slaughtered. We had Coke. We had jollof rice. It never happened. I'm talking of the First Republic. Even the first few years, because I was in Form 1 in 1960. So we've moved beyond that. And the Awolowos that we are talking about, they were in their 30s. Maybe many people forget. Awo was about 36 or 37. So the young people of today should borrow a leaf from, I've mentioned the Nahuros and all these people who had ideas, correct ideas, in terms of reshaping Nigeria. I think it can still be done. Okay?
But there is something that I think, you know, we should consider crucial. How do we know how we are going to journey together if we don't know where we are going together? In terms of, I'm talking about the vision.
No, it's the leadership. The leadership, you know, that has to show promise and a long, you know, capacity to transform Nigeria.